the way that we should realistically frame this, if we're being actually, a little bit based, is, hey, the Shy can have bad games. Is it something that LNG are willing to exploit? And will the Shy actually give windows of opportunity to allow himself to be exploited like he did in that previous series against RNG?
Well, we're going to jump straight into picks and bans. This is game number 1 of this series, and something I'm noticing straight away, Ivor and the Jace, these things not being banned out right now. We'll see what the side of Weibo want to try and put in here. And again, the funny thing is as well, is that LNG kind of doing something that a lot of teams haven't been doing recently, which isn't completely, kind of free banning out Xiaohu and kind of letting him have something like the Azir, which he's shown to have a lot more practice on.
Yep, and we'll see. And we'll see what's exactly going to be prioritized. It feels like it's just going to be the Jace though immediately, doesn't it? Like, feels... To me, at least, the series that I've watched recently, it's just kind of become a B1 pick or ban champion. We'll see whether or not Sejuani gets taken away, whether or not it's going to be Maokai. Those are like the common pairings right now with it. Both enable very different playstyles. But for Weibo, what do they want to take away, right? With Sejuani banned away, actually, beg your pardon, that Maokai technically does rise a little bit in priority. And then with the Tristana gone, a couple of AD mid laners not really there in choice, unless Xiaohu wants to pull out that Yone from a few weeks ago, or the Cassante as well for the Shy. It could be a very easy rotation to just ensure that you have a very solid and consistent top side matchup.
And that's the thing as well. Like, I think the thing is that when Weibo been able to give the Shy something that he's been able to absorb pressure with something that he's been able to kind of just sit on the side lane and not think about too much about, kind of the pressures and stuff like that, that's when they've looked best. That's when they've been able to kind of, move the pieces around a little bit more, get Xiaohu and Weiwei around the map to kind of create that mid-jungle synergy. And for LNG, they're now going to have to try and figure out what their connection is. I was going to say that Zach got locked in. That is a Tarzan special if they wanted to go for it. But this is what I was talking about before we came into this. Gala has been unafraid to go for things like the Ziggs.
Yeah, all right. I'm down for it. We'll see how Weibo adapt, right? Because Ziggs works obviously both as a poke champion, but he's also great at terrain control, right? Controlling chokes with the minefield, with the satchel. And of course, the biggest point about especially pro Ziggs is if he's able to ever get on top of a tower and your team picks up the Herald early on, you are breaking so much and getting so much gold off of those structures. So Weibo really have to consider what their bottom lane matchup is going to be, right? It's going to have to be something that can really match a lot of this early wave clear, sort of around like level 5 onwards that Ziggs can provide, so that you prevent him as much as possible from hitting on these towers.
And the Azir gets locked in as well. I did mention that obviously Xiaohu has been playing it a lot and has looked fantastic on it. But for me, I mean, you're getting seriously outranged right now with all this poke coming into you right here. Like the Jace accelerated shock blast, the bouncing bombs, the minefields to try and get your Shrima shuffles, and even just the satchel charge if you pop that down in front of you as the Ziggs and kind of just stop the Azir engage. So gonna have to see maybe a little bit more creativity coming out here from the side of Xiaohu if he wants to try and make those engages work.
I think my bigger concern is less that they're actually outranged and a lot more about the fact that they're actually lacking a lot of, immediate hard engage, right? Obviously, you've got Maokai, and Maokai has that big, slow-moving field, but that's the thing, it's slow-moving, right? You want something that can immediately kick off a fight. Maokai works as kind of a means to make a fight very awkward to take from the opposite side because of that big field where no longer can you fight unless you want to eat the roots. So with the Nautilus and the Rakan out, it makes me wonder if Crisp is going to default to something like a Leona, perhaps later on, but I feel like right now, it's likely going to be an AD carry, or maybe they're just going to hold it for light for now. Even though they know what the Ziggs matchup is, they go towards that Leona, and I feel like this just makes a lot of sense. You want something that is, additionally non-committal, yes, but also can kind of match the range at which picks like the Ziggs and the Jace can be working at.
And that's exactly what you called for as well. You want that initial engage. As you mentioned, the Maokai is great follow-up engage, or possibly even disengage from anyone running in on top of you, but not so great as an initiator tool. So really love to see the Leona kind of comboing up there. You've got a very tanky team now as Weibo as you look to try and make this one work. So you should be able to kind of deal with a lot of the poke here that's coming out, but LNG do lock in that Alistar again. Another little bit of kind of disengage here. I honestly would love the Zac here. I'm not even going to lie. I don't think it's going to get locked in, but it is, again, a Tarzan special. The Nocturne works as well to an extent, but it's kind of helping have the Renekton have a dive buddy.
Do I feel like I would want to dive in with Nocturne? Though, honestly, if you're looking for that, I feel like Zac unironically is the better option, but hey, that's just me. Let's see where Light decides to go towards as LNG round out their comp, a lot of poke. Turning off the lights with Nocturne and being able to turn and re-engage, and also just turning off the lights for the sake of having perhaps Hung find a different angle. We're gonna get a Zeri game out of Light, so very interesting. We'll see exactly what build path comes out, right? Because it feels at the moment as if the Zeri's most popular build is kind of like this hybrid AP with Shiv build. Sometimes you'll see the AD builds come out and it's not necessarily as powerful as before. So curious about how Weibo are going to operate that pick now that we're on a much different patch to where it was very strong. But I feel like we mentioned for LNG, a lot of poke, a couple of strong avenues for flank angles. But for Weibo, a little more, I suppose, in a way, front to back, right? When you're running Maokai with Azir, you're looking to try and get set up around objectives and ensure that you're trying to deny LNG as much entrance to those rivers and areas where you're trying to control as possible.
And the Zeri, you know, obviously people might meme it, be like, oh, Zeri nerfed to the ground. But, like, the thing is that, like, you're not really going to be able to kill the Ziggs past level 5 or really, honestly, past level 3 once he gets 3 abilities. But it is a champion that we saw already here in the playoffs. It was RNG versus NIP. I believe it was LP who picked it up. Did have a fairly decent time of it. Got to the super late game and was able to do significant damage with it. So curious to see how that kind of, you know, continues forward in this particular game. But you know, it isn't a pick that I don't think is, you know, again, I think you mentioned it the last time as well, is that Zeri is still, you know, or any AD carry in the meta is still going to do damage when they're at 5-6 items. That's just a fact. So it doesn't matter how strong they are, you know, in the first few levels if you're not really fighting them.
Yeah, exactly right. And I feel like you're going to get half a pass. I'm at most concerned about, you know, things like priority, right? When we get to that sort of level 4 through 7 mark, and I anticipate both Hung and Light will be looking to roam a lot, right? So I feel like you could end up losing a lot of pressure down there because you anticipate that this Ziggs is going to have a lot more priority than the Zeri will in more cases than not. And again, that could just enable a lot more forward-thinking plays from LNG, which Weibo have to continually respond to.
Well, teams are locked and loaded. We are coming into our first game of this best of 5. Remember, it's not all doom and gloom. If you lose, you do have the regional gauntlet to look forward to, but you want to try and get as many points as you can. You want to try and give yourself as many opportunities to get yourself to Worlds. As LNG take to the Rift for the first time in playoffs, and Weibo look to try and continue that momentum after taking down NIP. We'll have to wait and see how both these teams fan out onto the Rift.
Very riled up crowd for game number 1. I'm not sure we caught the LNG gyos, but we certainly heard the Weibo ones. Very passionate.
Very loud, whatever that was.
That was, you know what? Actually, it was the guy that was calling the gyos.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it was so loud, but wait to see how both these teams want to go for. Of course, for LNG, this was kind of, you know, par for the course. They did have a, you know, kind of a pretty decent roster last split, or last year even. Obviously taking Scout from EDG and trying to move forward. Regular season MVP, and has had an exceptional time of it as well. So for them, they're not going to be happy with a top 6 finish here in the playoffs. They're looking for top 4 to maybe put a little bit of a dent into the untouchables, as I like to call them, of JDG and BLG.
Yeah, and, you know, again, right, going back to the spring playoffs, it is kind of, you know, a moment here for redemption for LNG, right? They were actually in the exact same side of the bracket in this top 4, you know, from regular season finish, and they got knocked out 3-1. They would not like to see a repeat here in summer, especially when, like you mentioned, an opportunity to make it to double bracket elimination, but also maybe if you can reach up towards, in this case it'll be JDG for them, give yourself the opportunity to do that. But even again, you know, ramifications, things like championship points, getting seeded even higher in the regional qualifiers, it's all going to be very important because the teams from, you know, this 3rd through 6th mark are incredibly close.
That's the great way to put it as well, because it does feel like we haven't really gotten to a point where it's been a guaranteed, you know, upset if a team that's, you know, technically higher seed loses. You know, like even with the WE EDG match, it was kind of like okay, well, even if WE win, I'm not really upset about that, or I'm not surprised as such, or not as surprised. And even now, like you said, with Weibo versus LNG, even EDG versus Top Esports, I think a lot of people will be kind of saying like, well, I'm not that surprised if Top Esports lose, or if now today LNG lose. However, when we go into BLG and JDG, that's when I want to see what these teams are made of, because there's still a couple of question marks about whether or not anyone in the LPL is going to be able to contest the likes of BLG and JDG.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be our question until we see it answered, right? Who can you know, hold a candle to JDG and BLG when they're on their day. Now, I mentioned that perhaps Crisp could have a little bit of freedom given what the bottom side matchup is. He's eyed up potentially this roam towards the mid lane. Do they have the damage for Scout? That's the big question. Oh, well.
Ooh, the flash misses, and now Crisp is lost. Oh, he's up a creek without a paddle. Flash, knock back into the fear. Burst blood going over to Tarzan. Look, I appreciate the effort, but that is just not what you need to be doing here as Weibo.
I just know Caedrel's jumping up and down in his chair, isn't he? I know he's so upset with that one. But yeah, again, idea, good from Crisp. Execution, not so much. But LNG won't care either way. Tarzan's going to pick up first blood. And of course, we know what Nocturne can do with a little bit of early gold, right? He will very much make a heavy impact if he can pick up that Stride Breaker earlier on. If he is given cash injections like this, Tarzan's going to pass through the mid lane looking for that double scuttle, or at the very least a little bit of information as to where Weiwei could perhaps be.
And look, the idea is good, but just again, kind of small little things. It took a little bit too long. You even saw Tarzan actually just kind of up to the top of that play, throwing out a Dustbringer into that brush just to see. You'll see it here on the top left. He throws out a Q just to see if there's somebody like a Maokai in this
like
brush, because they know that Scout's under pressure.
Yeah, exactly right. So LNG were actually kind of just ready for this play, but unfortunately the Zenith blade just flies to Timbuktu and never finds its target. Great flash as well from Scout just to secure Crisp, right? Realistically, I feel like Crisp was always going to die, but at the end of the day, just want to make sure that there is confirmation on that kill. Now, it does open up for Weibo to try and find an answer. With Jace not having flash, Xiaohu can find a Shurima shuffle, and of course, Weiwei, if he really has to as well, flash forward with Twisted Advance. So the opportunities to try and lock down Scout are there. I do wonder about, you know, whether or not they'll have enough damage if it is the case that, you know, Scout is at full health when those plays do kick off.
Good ward there from Zika. Does mean that they know exactly where Weiwei is. So already Tarzan kind of saying, yep, look, there's the pings. I know exactly what's going on. We have full information of everybody on the map for the moment. And this is fine for LNG, you know. They're a very cool, calm, collected team. They like the standardness, if you will, or the status quo of how the game goes, like when it goes like this.
Exactly. All right. And for me, I will always kind of refer back to those goalposts of, you know, a team ceiling, and like you say, when they are calm, when they are collected, and they're able to make, you know, educated and informed decisions about where they want to play and what, you know, rotations or focuses they want to have based on what they see on the map. That's when LNG look the strongest, because it feels like they make those decisions in a snap instant, and they will very much outdo their opponent just based on, you know, tempo, how quickly they are able to come up with ideas to make the enemy team as uncomfortable as possible. And if it's a slow game like this, again, where, you know, you've got double poke champions, right? I'm not going to say Gala's going to go tier, but, you know, back in the day, it would even be a tier on the Ziggs. But looking towards, you know, two-item carries, you're very comfortable to just kind of sit here and wait until those champions hit those points of power. Unless, of course, Weibo hand them some opportunities for plays. Xiaohu, a little bit of pressure here.
A little bit of pressure, holds his flash. Very well done here by Xiaohu. Scout's taking a huge amount of damage. Tarzan gets knocked back. Remember, no flash here onto the Nocturne. Will get rooted down there. Still putting in some decent work here. Bramble smash and into the soldiers of Shurima. Very well done here by Xiaohu and Weiwei to make sure they didn't just blow anything off too early.
Yeah, I was wondering towards the back end whether or not Tarzan was really going to be afforded the opportunity to walk out there, but they just about have enough damage. And with Tarzan going down, and a little bit of first move here from both Crisp and Light again, looks like they will be able to just about secure that dragon. LNG will know it's going on, but again, can't really have an answer with Tarzan coming back out from base from that mid lane plate. Maybe, just maybe, they look for a rotation in, but it feels a bit greedy if you look for a fight after the fact here.
Yeah, I mean, look, Weiwei had Nature's Grasp. You don't have the Paranoia. There's too many if, buts, and maybes that would need to come in there. You're not too much of a power point available for the side of Weibo to really kind of contest that. And the funny thing is that when you have something like a Ziggs and you're giving up early dragons, that's when the game starts to get a little bit more funky. That's when the game starts to get a little bit weird, because you should have just perma pushing power on this bot side as the Ziggs. But let's have a look at this one here. And again, just great trigger discipline from Xiaohu.
Yeah, great trigger discipline from Xiaohu, and you know, just being able to knock Scout under. Actually, great sidestep from Tarzan, by the way, to not get knocked under. Even though he's got Spell Shield, it's still, you know, a nice little bit of micro movement. But unfortunately, he's got Weiwei right behind him, able to stick on top, and they just don't have enough damage. Another Conquering Sands comes through from Xiaohu. And the chase down is really easy. Remember, no flash from that play earlier on where they did, you know, pick up on Crisp's mistake. Now has that flash back up. And we'll see whether or not Tarzan can put that to use now that he's also got the ultimate available.
Well, Hung just trying to move around here. Doesn't have level 6. This is the thing, we always see this around the Rift Tile. Spawns at 8 minutes. Unfortunately, for most supports, they have roamed once or twice, so they are not level 6 at this point. And it does become a little bit of a, can you leech off that mid lane to get your Solar Flare, to get your Unbreakable Will? And that's exactly what Crisp is trying to do right now. So see if they're able to make much out of this one here. And again, those big ultimates for something like an Alistar or Leona are incredibly key.
Yeah, it's something, if I recall correctly, it's like Down 1 2020. I have to hold the point. We're really exceptional at doing that. Zeka could be in trouble. He's got Flash.
Yeah, might have to pop the dominance. We'll really look to not to. The Shy didn't have 3 of the Q, so will not have the knock up to try and make that one work. So Zika just gets out with a slice and dice. Still no level 6s on the supports. As we can see, the bot laners are just having a little bit of a 1v1, and it looks like it's going to be maybe a 4v4 up towards this top side.
Yeah, 4v4 on the top side. If Gala wants to move up and not pressure the tower, he can. Weibo getting forced out, engaged on even.
Yeah, they're going to jump in on Weiwei. He uses the Nature's Grasp, but they're all lined up, which means they don't all get stun. Hung now getting a little bit too familiar with the enemy support. A mid laner Xiao who picks himself up a kill. They will trade support for jungler, but now Tarzan and Scout a little bit in no man's land. They need Zika the bouncer to escort them out to safety. Xiao, who is still here, has the Emperor's Divide and a flash if he needs it. He's going for it. Does knock Scout right into the waiting arms of the Shy and Chris. The Zenith Blade lands on the Scout, but Zika doing such a great job of keeping everybody from landing those death blows, and it's only a 1-for-1.
Well, I hope we get a replay from start to finish of that play, because I think Scout's E actually stopped the Shy from stunning about 2 people there with the Pathmaker. Really excellent stuff from him on the back end, but it's LNG going really, really deep for Weiwei, and they're not even really able to peel back off and go towards the Herald straight away. Perhaps now they'll look to start out, but there's vision there for Weibo. Realistically, if they want to recontest, I think they can. They've got the resources and the manpower to do so.
No Paranoia, no Nature's Grasp, and again, no Streamer Shuffle, but this time around we do have an Unbreakable Will and a Solar Flare. Crisp and Hung just kind of having a little bit of
round 2.
Testing one down, round 2. Let's fight. As we can see, there's the Mega Inferno Bomb to just bring down everybody's health bars, and this was the problem I said was going to happen when the Zig started becoming more involved with these teams, is that your range discrepancy up against the Azir is just so high.
Yeah, and in that case, that was just like the optimal situation, right? They're already disengaging, and then Ziggs manages to find a 2-man ultimate right in the center. A lot of bomb damage already available to him, and that's only going to get more and more impressive once things like the Leandries come in, Shadow Flame, or even if we get to the point of the Death Cap. So Gala should have a pretty good time of it. Let's take a look at this replay. This is the initial engage right at the start before Hung or Crisp had that level 6, but it's a lot of forcing, right? On top of Weiwei. As soon as the flash comes out, it's, you know, ultimate from Tarzan, flash forward again from Scout, flash again from Tarzan to ensure that, you know, he kind of tries to connect, I think, on the tether from the fear. It doesn't work out. Hung's getting run down the entire time that's happening with that extension. And then I really, man, it's going to cut off here, but I'm pretty sure that Scout saved everyone. Stopped the Shy from finding a 2-man stun with his W. Otherwise, that fight could have continued on, and he could have potentially even turned it around with an all-out.
Look, not the worst thing in the world. There's only a couple of 100 gold lead available for Weibo, and I'll be honest, it's probably in the Ziggs, looking at the CS differentials in that bot side, so not the worst place to have yourself in the world. Weibo will still be, you know, kind of looking on the back of the likes of the Shy and Xiaohu, who have picked up their first items. You've got the Crown of the Shattered Queen for Xiaohu's Azir, which means he's going to be able to deal with a lot more of this poke engage that's coming out here from LNG.
Yeah, but it's only going to be one ability, right? And obviously one ability can be very, very important, but considering how easy it could potentially be for his crown to be taken off, I wonder whether or not it's really the optimal way to go about it here. We'll see. I'm always very skeptical of Crown, unless it really does make sense, right? If it was full dive, it'll be alright. For now, though, Weibo on this dragon, and with that item completion, probably feeling a little bit emboldened if a fight was to kick off, but feels like LNG, again, a little bit too slow to the punch on this dragon take. And Weibo will get another one for 3, and it's going to be a Mountain Soul and Rift for our dragon this map.
Scout looking like he wants a bit of a roam here. Zika's not been having the best of times. I will say that the Renekton almost feels like it is countered by the Cassante, who doesn't have flash, but you're not really going to be killing him at this stage of the game. He's got those magical footwear, and just slightly going backwards when you mentioned about the crown. I think as well, it's not only. I think it's like the raw stats of it are kind of important to bring up as well, because it is kind of one of the few actual like AP items you can get that gives you HP. Whoa. As we can see that the Rift Herald's visually bugged just a little bit.
Okay,
it's dead, so we're not going to talk about it. But so like. I was gonna say, like, the crown does end up kind of, yes, the shield itself does feel like the thing you want to pop, but having that extra 600 health, it can be the difference maker a lot of times.
Yeah, that's true. Health is very important. And this is what I was talking about with the Herald earlier on. When you have things like the Ziggs, right? You really want to try and deny that one away. That tower was at, what, 1.5k-ish? Able to just walk up, satchel it. Just very easily takes it down. It was actually below a plate, but either way, you get the idea, right? He could have done that from almost double that tower's HP. Which is very, very absurd. And Gala will just pick up the rest of that gold, and like we said, will kind of slingshot himself further ahead of Light 1-1. We'll feel very, very good about that.
Now Jamada, it's been an active early game, but not as active. It's only been 4 kills. We've had plenty of fights.
Bloody. All right.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. So where do you want to see the next real contest? 2 dragons for Weibo. I don't imagine LNG are going to want to give up a 3rd.
No, most likely not. So I think now that Gala's in the mid lane, what you're going to likely see is a lot of mid lane priority gained by LNG very consistently. So just slowly push the vision line up, right? You've got Herald also in 2.5 minutes time, a little bit before this Mountain Dragon. I do wonder whether or not they want to, prioritize that again when you have the Ziggs, even though it's no longer tower plates up on offer. It's still very much something where you can break a tower from a much higher HP threshold than perhaps you're often allowed to be. But mid lane priority, just move to side lanes, right? You have Nocturne at the end of the day. As long as you're keeping both Zeka and Scout very much secured in their isolated 1v1s on the side lane, I feel like you're fine. Just have these first move moments like this, force out some of the spells, force out an ult from Weiwei as well.
Yeah, that feels
just rough. Do this on repeat, right? Keep on layering in the pressure to Weibo until something truly does crack wide open.
No ultimate there on Weiwei makes any kind of fight difficult. I will say there is no objective for the next minute or, so not really expected to see much else. So, you know what? I take that back from my criticism of Weiwei. He recognized there was no real kind of objective to fight around, so he didn't really have to need to kind of, could throw it out just to make sure his support didn't die regardless.
Yeah, exactly. So, I expect until that Herald spawns up, and to be fair now, it's only a minute away, we'll have a fairly quiet sequence of events. I feel like LNG really want to start picking up these objectives. Ooh, and maybe even force Weiwei. How caught out is he?
They're going to go for it. There's the paranoia down the backside of this one here. Weiwei's already TP'd in. Scout was waiting and biding his time, but they've already taken down the Emperor of Shurima. Weiwei next on the chopping block, but they're trying to hold this blast cone, and they will get him over the wall. Nicely done there by Chris. You can see him. He was like holding the door like an Indiana Jones. Like, come on, last second. Bang, let's go. Gets himself away from the falling boulder, but still good pickoff from LNG. And it's again slow, methodical, very well thought out here from the side of LNG to find these small advantages.
Now, they will give up a little bit here on the bottom side, but it's not really the end of the world. It doesn't look like the Shy is going to get very close to taking down this tower, as Zucker is on his way down here to defend. That wasn't, a pick where they find an objective off the back end, right? It's just Xiaohu that they pick up. He did have a shutdown, however, and that's a lot of gold to give over to Renekton, so that's still going to feel all right. And they plus got Weiwei's flash. So now at this next objective, as it spawns up, if their ultimates can come back up in time, they will have a relatively free target to look to focus on. As Shy putting down a little bit of pressure here. Again, trying to just break this tower before the Herald spawns up to give LNG a little bit more to think about in terms of how they're looking to approach that Herald. If at all, really.
Yeah, I was going to say if at all. But even then, for Weibo, they're the one with 2 dragons. They could maybe look towards both of these objectives, because I was just about to say, another TP coming in.
Okay.
You've lost the flash off Zika, so he's not going to be able to flash engage straight away. They know he's there. They had perfect vision of it. A flash away as Hung tries to engage. There's going to be the Cassandra coming in on top of this one here. There's Nature's Grasp, and it does land on quite a few people. The Solar Flare is good. They just can't make this fight work, and now Weibo can pounce right back onto LNG. The Shy gives up his life, but it is for the betterment of his team, because they knew exactly what was going on, and now LNG, they have to scatter. They have to run and try and find some kind of solace.
It was LNG who started this play off trying to make a pincer work, but then because of the way that they have to retreat back onto one another, it ends up with Weibo having this advantage of being able to approach from multiple angles. Scout will get that execute off, but that's a really awkward way for a fight to turn out, considering the setup was almost beautiful. We'll see, I'm sure, in a replay in a moment. But of course, with the Dragon coming up, we may have a little bit of delay on it. We'll see. Because now, Weibo, you kind of anticipate, will be very happy to walk over to this and maybe even just outright take it. Tarzan's in the area again, but no flash. He's going to have Paranoia come in, potentially to force a fight and get on top of the Dragon for a steal.
No Nature's Grasp, a lot of key ultimates no longer available. Light still has all summoners and has been doing very well at just kind of keeping this one. And it looks like LNG are giving it up, so
yeah,
not going to maybe go over unless Tarzan wants to go in over the wall. He's going to try and do it maybe. Looking for it. No, I guess he just wanted a Q. Don't really feel like you're going to be getting that at this level of play. But now, the Shy might be thinking like he's going for a little bit of engage. Jumping onto Hong. And Zika has to try and move in here with the Ruthless Predator. But now the Shy just goes way too far forward. And the bomb comes down on top of his head. I didn't realize Gala was an Oppenheimer fan. But my lord, he made Cassante just melt with those bombs.
Yes, he did. Massive, massive explosion on the back end. And I'm not quite sure what the Shy was doing. I'm gonna try and break it down. It just felt like he
heard that before?
Just felt like he was probably gonna get a lot more backup from his team.
Shimada.
He probably felt like he was gonna get a little bit more backup from his team, and he just never ended up getting that. As like I said, Zucker comes in with the flank. Xiaohu knows where he is, so it's a good reactionary dash away, and then also a flash from Hung's engage. But then at this point, they're the ones getting pincered all of a sudden. Gala then also gets caught out by the back end of the root of the Maokai. That is somewhat unfortunate, but at the end of the day, he was always getting pincered here. And yeah, a lot of flashes end up coming through. The Shy dies in the pit. But like we said, a worthy sacrifice at that time to basically secure a very hard winning team fight for Weibo.
And look, again, still not that close or that far of a gold lead ahead for LNG. They're picking up kills and towers, but they're not really picking up all of the objectives. 3 dragons for Weibo as we hit 20 minutes means that at 23.5 minutes, that 4th dragon, that soul, will spawn. And a mountain soul for their team is invaluable against the poke composition that LNG have built up for themselves.
Not only that, right, but they've got 3 frontliners who, are naturally quite tanky anyway, but being able to stack up with the Mountain Soul is just going to get to a point where it's going to be very, very obnoxious to cut through some of these tanks. And, the LNG lineup, it's not necessarily the best at, cutting through those big, bulky health bars. I will say Ziggs does a surprising amount of damage to even frontliners with things like the mines. So
it's over time.
It's over time.
It's not instant,
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's only really the minefield where you'll see, tanks actually take a fair amount of damage, but even then, it's not really that much. As now, speaking of mines, Gala's going to have to get back to the mid lane, put down a lot of wave play here as the Herald crashes. Maybe Weibo can just force it, but again, if you ever really want to step too far up, it looks like they'll be given the freedom to, as they're also trading it for the bottom side tower there, which Scout will pick up, and at the very least cross map as Weibo pick up their first tower of the game.
And that's great for Weibo as well. Like, one of the hardest towers to break is that mid lane tier 1 when against the Ziggs, just because he has so much just inherent wave clear. Scout's still going in this bot side and will almost get the tower, 2 towers to himself. A little bit of a slower rotation that came out from Weibo meant that he was able to get quite a bit of damage out onto that bottom tier 2, but we come back in and we kind of look at where the game is situated. 2 items on most carries at this stage in the game. We are going to have Suzhou finally finishing up his Thornmail as well, so he's very tanky. Will melt a bit to the likes of the Ziggs bombs, but he's kind of hoping that he doesn't have to deal with too much of that. And honestly, I think at the next fight, it's going to be about execution. Both of these teams are at fairly decent power spikes, but like you said, it's about how they utilize their kind of positions around these objectives.
Yeah, and positions, I love that you bring that up, because now that tier 1 is down for LNG, it does, on occasion, offer Weibo the opportunity to catch the mid lane waves a little bit higher up than when there's, towers at tier 1 on both sides. You'll see that when Light steps up, especially because he's got that static shiv, he's going to be able to kind of, kill the wave maybe a third higher up on the lane. And what that really does is enables Weibo just for a slightly earlier rotation. And whilst in the moment it might not necessarily look like or feel like a lot, over time what it amounts to is, a vision line that is set up a lot more freely, because you know that somebody from LNG has to answer the wave and they have to answer it a lot slower than what you can. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for Weibo in terms of that setup. And for LNG, the way that you typically try and break that is just kind of numbers, right? Send numbers through the mid lane, try and give up a little bit on the side lane. It will suck, but at the end of the day, you're now at a point where 1 dragon away from Soul, you can't really afford to give up this mid lane priority, just because, again, against a composition like Weibo with all of this terrain set up, it's very difficult to regain that control without really diving heavily forward. And here you go, numbers force through the mid lane. They can look to try and retake some control around either side of this map.
All right, 30 seconds are just underneath it until this dragon spawns. I will say, Weibo do not have to go for this. That's the power of getting so many dragons early. If they don't feel like they want to go for it, they don't have to. We will see the Shy kind of posturing aggressively. He knows that Gala's not here yet, so he's putting in some serious work there onto Hong, but taking just as good as he's given. A TP coming in here from Zika, who finishes up his Black Cleaver. Important to note, Xiao has a stopwatch. He's one of the few people with stasis available to him for this fight. So you can tell that Weibo know exactly what they need to do here for this one here. The Shy is going to reset, get some more health going on to it for him, but that's a good ward here from LNG on both sides of this river to make sure they know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. They really need that information. Dragon is up on the map now, but what do LNG want to do about this, right? Again, you know, forms of engage a little bit limited. Whereas for Weibo, Leona, Maokai, both can really force LNG into awkward positions. They're just looking for a little bit of poke right now, which I don't mind. And it looks like they're leaning a lot more heavily towards this dragon. So Weibo, what can they do? They have to find an answer. They have to kind of force through. Isn't it engaged here in the mid lane?
Solar Flare was so big, crisp. That was fantastic. That tells me that Scout is out of this fight. Tarzan now so damn low. He gets all out and taken out by the Shy, who looks to try and 1v2 on the backside. Him and Chris going in as beef burgers are put on the barbecue there as Hong goes down. A double kill for the Shy. He doesn't quite go down either on this one, and he's still pushing forward. Zeri finish it off. That is a 5-for-none. Crisp with the absolute god play on this Leona.
Crisp and clean, that engage, and it finds Scout smack bang in the middle of all of LNG. It's going to get them the soul. And the fight that followed was absolutely excellent on all sides from Weibo. And LNG just had no answer. As soon as Scout was dead, Gala was also forced into a very awkward situation because he was actually right on top of Scout too. So the disengage, kind of difficult to navigate. And you can see Scout, just that Q onto the wave was enough, right? You can see how quickly he's bursted down and CC'd. And Gala can't really dish out the damage like that. Tarzan has to disengage with the ultimate, but he then goes on top of the Shy, who still has his ultimate available, and picks him off quite freely. And then at this point, everyone is just scattered to the winds. Nice dash away from that Q3, but again, Crisp on the money on top of Gala. Flash follow from the Shy, and the cleanup is excellent.
That's all it takes, that one small moment. You have a range advantage until you don't. That is kind of why this Leona pick is so good. You can see what it means to the back-end staff there. The coaches really liking the fact that everyone was able to kind of come in cohesively. And that's the thing. The biggest criticism is obviously, you know, individual, you know, kind of mistakes coming out from Weibo so far this split, but it has been the fact that they haven't really looked at all the times like they're on the same page, like they're on the same kind of, you know, note to be able to make a play like that happen. That looked so clean because everyone committed to it. Now they've Mountain Soul, which means they can start and, you know, back off this Baron a million times over, and it won't make a difference.
Okay, really smart far side alteration, like we just saw. Baron started up off vision, but it's already dying. 4K, 3K. LNG has to make a decision.
Here we go, Paranoia comes in. Are they going to be able to get it down? No, secured by Weibo. Now they can look to take the fight. You can see the Shy trying to zone out the rest of the team as Scout has already fallen. It's a double kill for the Zeri. He's now looking for Tarzan as he wants that triple. Gonna get it in for himself. 3 easy kills. The Baron and Weibo are wiping the floor with LNG in this first game.
This game looks just about done and dusted. LNG have a relatively short death timer, so this shouldn't be the end game push, but for Weibo with Baron buff and so much time, if they get this inhibitor on this push, they're going to have 2 minutes worth of time almost still left available to the Baron. They're going to be able to pick up so much more standing gold. A little bit of wave clear comes through, but it's not really enough. And Weibo have just about everything they need to try and close out this game. LNG, they really need to find a bit of a miracle fight onto Xiaohu, onto Light in the next couple of minutes. Maybe if they can hold out until that Elder Dragon spawns up, they can flip the game there, but until then, it looks really difficult. This cannon minion should just about finish off the job. Another one
got a
pulls
friend. Got a friend right at the end there to make sure. But yeah, I mean, look, when you've got a poke composition like this from LNG, 2 things that suck for you. Mountain Soul, Baron buff. That were 2 things that Weibo were able to pick up for them, and that there's nothing you can really do. It feels so limiting for the side of LNG because, like, you just can't clear waves, you just can't take these fights, and again, just great cohesive play from Weibo to make this call.
Yeah, let's see. Does the smite come in? No, from Tarzan. Not able to find it. It was briefly underneath that smiteable range for a moment, but not quite long enough. Xiaohu again, he's been so on point with his Emperor's Device this game. And Blight is beneficiary of all of these plays. Triple kill. And if Xiaohu wasn't enough, now they're dealing with a 3.5 item Zeri who's also got a stopwatch and still has her flash even after all of those very explosive fights.
Good wards here from LNG. Good highlighting. You know, it's like one of those foreshadowing things in movies. It's like, ooh, is it going to be a big thing? Yeah. Is it going to be? But you've got three TPs. But what can it do? Like, I mean, like Renekton's great and all, but like the Zeri, I feel like is such a great pick into it because it's got its own mobility, it's got its own kiting material, and 5-0 and 4 makes it so difficult. I mean, how do you stop this? You can't. You still have 40 seconds, like you mentioned. The Baron buff's still ticking.
Yep, that's 2 inhibitors, and now they've also got the Shy up on the top side, shoving in a wave as well. And with his Baron buff, they can just sync up, make their way towards that top side, and kind of just restart the siege. LNG again a little bit slow, but can't really blame them. As another wave also pulls through, and now Weibo, they can either be patient or they can look to pull the trigger if LNG overstep. LNG realistically have to make a decision very soon because triple in hit whilst the Elder's up is going to be near impossible to defend. It seems like they're just going to yield it.
You got to do something here, LNG. You're going to die a death of 1,000 cuts if you don't. There's a TP available for Xiaohu, and they might look just TP in. This could be it. This could be the game. You've got to try and make a play off of this because I don't see how you're able to defend this, and you've already lost so much.
Yeah, it's way too much. 3 inhibs. Teleports back now from Xiaohu. Super minions, double waves on the way through the mid lane. They'll be there first. They've already got a super wave on the bottom side. Here we go.
There's Nature's Grasp. It's coming across just to stop Gala. They're going to put in the Paranoia to try and jump onto Light. He does get the knock up here with Hong, but they just can't make it happen. Hong is a lost and alone in the world as they try to put everything into Xiaohu. They will take him down. The Nocturne dies, though, straight away afterwards. There's a triple kill coming in for Light on this Zeri. 8-0 and 4. And that's Weibo putting a definitive stamp on this series, saying we are not going to roll over and die. You're going to have to earn this if you want to come back into it.
Very impressive showing from Weibo in this game, number 1, from top to bot. And a lot of snappy decision making. Specifically, I feel like if Crisp isn't the one getting MVP in this game, I'll be very surprised. Yes, Light found 2 triple kills. Yes, he was popping off in the team fights, but so much of that game was turned around on the fact that Crisp was able to find those very decisive team